Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the True Life Podcast. I hope everybody's day is going beautiful. I hope that you realize there's a miracle getting ready to happen to you and that the world is smiling down on you and just waiting to show you how much it loves you. I am here with an incredible guest, and I think that all of you are going to understand why I think this person's so incredible in just a few short minutes. Today, I am thrilled to introduce Carly Dutch-Greene, a visionary designer who transforms everything she touches into design gold, not just because of her signature gold glasses, but because of her unmatched intuition and internal vision. Carly is driven by a passion for making meaningful connections, approaching every project with a deep commitment to storytelling, ensuring that a clear narrative shapes every visual element she creates. Specializing in transformative branding and design within the psychedelic community, Carly understands the profound impact that good design can have, evoking wonder, sparking possibility, and reflecting the potential of psychedelics to inspire meaningful change. Her work goes beyond aesthetics, crafting visually striking and intellectually engaging solutions that resonate deeply with her clients' aspirations and audiences. With a commitment to balance, authenticity, and radiance, Carly brings humor, insight, and a genuine desire to connect into every aspect of her life and work. Please welcome Carly Dutch-Greene, a designer who embodies the art of design as a powerful force of transformation and connection. Carly, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the amazing introduction. And I gotta say, I miss my gold glasses so much. They broke earlier this year, and it's been really devastating to say the least.
You know, it's interesting. I'm so thankful for not only like when I read that part about the gold glasses, like on some level, I can't help but think of the golden ratio and how that incorporates stuff into what we see. But I'm getting way ahead of myself here. Carly, can you just give us a little bit more background on Studio Delic, on what drives you and the passion you have?
Yeah, for sure. So I've been a designer for over a decade. I started designing in high school. I was fortunate enough, I'm from Madison, Wisconsin originally. And I was fortunate enough to have a graphic design program in high school. And that was awesome. And I immediately fell in love. And so it was very early on that I said, I'm going to be a designer. And I just like manifested it. Basically, I just said, I am a designer, like as many times as I could. And I went to university and studied design. And my pursuit in design was like my driving force for my life for a very long time and still is. So as a designer, I've worked for a variety of companies over the course of my career. My a big part of my career was serving a company called Sounds True. I'm not sure if you've heard of Sounds True, but they're a transformational learning company. A lot of cool stuff there, but I really got super clear. I always knew I wanted to design for
Right.
meaningful companies, meaningful individuals, to help change the world in some way or another. And Sounds True really afforded me that. So I designed brand and marketing campaigns for some of the world's leading spiritual teachers through Sounds True. It was absolutely life changing. I got to say, I love my job. It brought me to tears on multiple occasions because of how fulfilled I really felt. And so I knew once my time was up at Sounds True, I didn't want to do something really conventional. And I've had a relationship with psychedelics and drugs, specifically and prominently psilocybin mushrooms, since the age of 16. And they've just been a pillar of my life in creating meaningful change and transformation. All the moments in my life where I've felt like I've come up against a wall, like I don't know which way to go. I use mushrooms as a tool to provide me clarity. And so I'd been called to incorporate design and psychedelics in some capacity for many years, even during my time at Sounds True. But ultimately, in at the end of 2022, I got the opportunity to either look for a new job or, I guess, start something myself. Hi, Caesar.
What
So
up,
good to,
Caesar?
yeah. Um, And I really like didn't feel called to look for a job. But even in looking for a job, like there's no places I can apply in the psychedelic space that like have an opportunity to be an art director, a CD, or even just simply a designer. The industry is so new. So even though I'd worked for other companies for my entire career, I was like, all right, now is my opportunity. I can either be that person that always wishes that they had, because I had the idea, I was like a design and branding studio for businesses committed to psychedelic medicine. And I could either say, man, I really wish I started that studio, 10, 20, 30 plus years down the line, or I could just do it. And yeah, I think that's a really cool thing about the psychedelic space is people are finding gaps and filling them. And I really believe Studio Delic fills that need for like to have a design and branding studio that really deeply understands the psychedelic landscape is like really a game changer. And so that's a little background of me as a designer and an art director, and now into Studio Delic, which has been just over a year since the launch.
It's so fascinating to get to hear the way in which that relationship with who you were, what you're doing, and the way you carry yourself is kind of manifesting itself. I gotta just reverse for a second. When we start talking about, especially psilocybin, there is this state of awareness that allows you to build a relationship with what is possible, not only with your ideas, but with everything around you. And when you talk about Studio Delic, when you talk about, I had this idea to translate my vision into reality. Like, can you just speak to the idea of how maybe psilocybin or mushrooms made that possible for you? Because I think a lot of people, I think we on some level are getting to this stage where we are developing a new sense of an awareness, and that is translating your vision into reality. And I talked to a lot of cool people like yourself that are doing that, and I think mushrooms are a big part of helping us be aware that that is possible. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, at least, and this is probably true for a lot of people, there's just so much going on a day to day basis. There's so much noise, there's so many opinions. And when I am deep in relationship with psilocybin, when I am on a journey, when I'm, you know, really deep in it, all of that shit falls
Yep.
away. It's like the clarity, the downloads, they can finally reach me. The messages I think I've been trying to get from life on a daily basis that haven't quite been able to like hit um, because of the mushrooms. They just like snap right into place, and that's something that is so essential for growth in all ways, is to just be so clear on what's needed, what's next. What I think when I sit with mushrooms, I get immense clarity on my higher self and like what that looks like. And my ultimate goal in life is to just move towards that, to move towards her, and to do everything on a daily basis in service of her. So yeah, the mushrooms just they bring clarity, and that's the tool that I need to keep moving forward.
It's so awesome to hear. Do you feel that that particular clarity is something that helps you bring or manifest the people you work with? Like if you're working with Sounds True or different clients that you have or other people in the psychedelic space, does is it that same clarity that helps you understand their vision and bring about their vision when you're working with them?
Absolutely,
Mm.
100%. I actually have sort of this ritual
Yeah.
when I get a new client that I like to, have a mushroom journey, and um, I have notes that I take, and a questionnaire that I have a client fill out. So I have all their information. And I kind of just like sit with it in ceremony and like feel really deeply like what's needed for their brand, for their business. And like that is a tool that really sets, I think, me and other designers that have that connection to psychedelic medicine apart, is being able to use them as a tool to deeply understand clients and their needs.
Yeah, it's interesting. I noticed a while back that you're up for a spot at South by Southwest. Is there anything you could tell us about that?
Yeah, that was a really cool development. Honestly, there's so much cool background
Yeah.
in how that came to be. If you don't mind me going into a little bit more
I'll
detail.
be offended if you don't tell me.
Okay. Okay, cool. So, in starting the business last year, I knew the first year would really be about networking. And, people can't hire me if they don't know who I am. I haven't been a part of the psychedelic space. Like, this was full on new. I knew the people that were like really cool and doing things, and admired them, looked up to them, Caesar Marin being one of those people.
Totally.
And I really hustled. I volunteered at conferences. I snuck into parties at those conferences to meet people that I needed to meet, to
Yep.
really, just hustle and do what I had to do to like get the Studio Delic name out there. And um, it was kind of feeling not fruitful for a while, up until, and I had this idea for the Psychedelic Professionals Networking Club, which we can talk about a little bit
Yeah.
more later. But all in an effort to just connect with people in the psychedelic space. And ultimately, in like March of this year, I started to see the pieces really come together. And I started to see, we kind of talked about this earlier before jumping on, which is like, I started to see the people that I looked up to as now like peers, and like really I'm connected with these people. I speak to them on a daily basis. Like, we're in the trenches together building this field. And so the panel at South by Southwest is really cool because the people I'm speaking with are quite literally the people that I admired and was like, gosh, I hope I get the chance to be in a room with them someday. And to apply for South by Southwest for a panel on psychedelics with Alexandra Plessner, Dennis Walker, and Caesar Marin is like, pinch me, like the coolest thing I could ever. Like, me a year ago, I couldn't fathom that happening. So it was just like really, really cool to just all of us get on board and get on the same page. Like, we want to talk about psychedelics in the media and like how important it is to portray them in the right light, whether it's headlines or articles that are being written. And yeah, there's just so much there, and I fingers crossed that we make it.
Yeah, I there's such a like four heavyweights in there, and if anybody is listening or watching, like I think that you should be going and voting, and I'm looking forward to watching all of you put together that panel and see it at South by Southwest. It's almost like a confirmation of dreams coming true, and I I don't know, my personal opinion, you guys are shooing, but I don't want to jinx anything, so I'll just leave that right there.
Thank you so
You
much.
Yeah, when it comes to networking, maybe you can talk. Like, I've been fortunate enough to get to go and hang out at one of the accelerators that you put on, and I love the method that you use, the way in which you're able to put people together in a format where they can network and talk and exchange ideas. Maybe you could speak to the idea of how that came about, how it's working, and your thoughts on it.
Yeah, definitely. So in my effort for the first year to network and to meet people in the space, I found myself in a lot of rooms with practitioners and facilitators, which was incredible. Just meeting people in general who are dedicated to psychedelics as their, North Star is like incredible. Um, but I felt like the odd one out. Like, I'm kind of running this business, I'm figuring out the legal part, the things I can say and can't say. And I know that's the same for the practitioners, but I really had this deep need to connect with people who are doing more businessy things, marketing, whatever, like anything sort of in the entrepreneurial or business side of things. And I just saw this opportunity to like create a space for people who are committed to this as their line of work, to gather and to talk about really what businesses they're running, why they're running those business, their intention day to day, like how they balance like personal psychedelic use with their business, how those things coexist. Really just all parts, all the challenges and the wins that we experience. So I started Psychedelic Professionals Networking Club to create that space for people in the field. And we've had 3 so far. It's been like the responses have been absolutely magical. I was like, okay, maybe I'll get, 5, 10 people for the first one. First one I had like 60 signups, 30 people show up, and consistently it's kind of been like that. Kind of a pinch me moment, honestly. And creating a space and hearing the feedback from the people who show up to those events of like, wow, the connections have been
Yep.
so fruitful and so meaningful. And, I'm featuring this person on this article, or like we're doing a collaborative project. That is like what it's all about. So it's been absolutely incredible. I have so much gratitude for that community, and I'm stoked to see how it grows. It's really just beginning.
Yeah, thank you for me, and I think I can speak for the majority or probably everybody there. Like, thank you for putting that on. It has been fruitful, and it's amazing to get to be in a group of people where you're like, oh, these are my people right here. Like, it feels like home. You know what I mean? Like, oh, there is a group of us. Yeah, you get all excited. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I think getting to jump in any of those
yeah,
breakout rooms, I sort of like
yep,
set up the breakout rooms, and I can kind of like cherry pick which ones I go in. And every single time, people are deeply connecting and having meaningful conversations. And to do that so quickly with people you've never met is such a testament to the type of individuals that are in the psychedelic field.
yeah. It, it reminds me of, you know, the way getting to go to like some startup parties or some accelerators in person. This is very similar. Like, I get the same vibe of like-minded people that actually have really cool ideas to offer each other. And it's like, boom, I can reach out to this person right now, and after this meeting I can go jump on a Zoom with them and we can collaborate and potentially start something. Like, that is magical. Like, it's tangible. Like, that's it translates. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I think people are just really excited
Yeah.
to be in this space and to fill those gaps, like I
Yep.
mentioned. Like
Yep.
they're and everyone wants to support each other in their efforts. There's this energy of you can do it. There's no competition. We're in this together. And I think it's so important to have that because there's an abundance in the universe, right? There's
Yep.
not a limited or finite amount. We can all be successful, and we're more powerful together when we support each other. And when there's something I don't know how to do, there's no doubt someone knows how to do that and really well. So to be able to be in those spaces and meet people that like know how to do what I don't know how to do is like so game changing.
Agreed. It I feel like we're on the ground floor and it's still really early, but I'm curious if you can maybe talk about some trends that you have seen happening or some things that you see on the horizon. I know that we get a lot of headlines with the MDMA and the Lycos and facilitators. Like, there's all this information out there. I'm just curious, like, what kind of trends do you see happening out there right now?
Yeah, so what's actually coming into my realm
Yeah.
a lot lately is gray market products.
Okay.
And that's super interesting. I've got a
Right.
lot of people coming in needing packaging designs or branding for their gray market products. And that's a
Right.
super, it's a challenging thing to do work on. You can have contracts in place, but there's a possibility to be complicit in that that offering. So that has been a huge trend. And if you're on social media, there's
Yeah.
no doubt that you're seeing some pretty surprising ads and accounts that are promoting these products. And so, yeah, that's just one of the trends that I'm really seeing right now is, and I think it's so important to provide access to medicine, right?
Yes.
And so many people who aren't in the know, who aren't in the psychedelic space, who don't have experience obtaining medicine or drugs, um, having those gray market products makes medicine more accessible, but it's a tricky business to be in. There's no doubt.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's interesting to look at the path that cannabis has taken over the years, and it's sort of been in this legal but not really legal framework. And you got dispensaries with like armed cars holding all their cash and stuff, and it moves prices and stuff like that.
Yep.
Do you think that, like, on some level, that psychedelics is taking a similar road, or are we learning from that aspect, or is there anything we can do about it?
Yeah, I mean, we have to learn from the cannabis industry. I think maybe at the beginning there was a lot of
Right,
good intention there to medicalize and make it accessible in that way. But I think the legalization route really showed us a lot.
right,
Of course, many states generated so much tax dollars to put into things like schools
yep,
or other beneficial programs. Um, but what we've seen from a legalization standpoint in the cannabis industry is not what I think we want to replicate in the
right,
psychedelic space. That's why I'm a really big proponent of decriminalization
right,
over legalization. I think there's a place for all of it, for medicalization and having medicine facilitated in a healthcare setting, no doubt. But I think what's really beautiful about the psychedelic field is it's not just about drugs or just a drug, a
right.
substance. I think cannabis can really be used as a medicine if facilitated in the right way. Um, but it's so much more than that. I mean, we're looking at retreats, we're looking
Yep.
at research and facilitation and products. It's really all of these things together. So yes, we should definitely learn from the cannabis space because there was a lot of missteps and we would be it'd be a missed opportunity not to, but there's also like so many other industries that are important to like integrate as we build this together.
Yeah, I love that. It's really well said. And on some level, I think cannabis helped, in my opinion, to destigmatize what's happening now. And I know there's still a lot of stigma. As someone who goes out and talks about it, yourself, myself, my daughter goes to school around here, and they're like, "What do you talk about on your podcast, George?" So there is this stigma still out there of people like, "You're doing drugs, man." And I'll try to explain to them in a different way what's happening. But I think it's not too far down the road where we start seeing architecture firms bringing this in to help brainstorm how to build beauty, how we see communities coming together to talk about potential use at end of life and how it helped them. And it just sort of manifests in a way, oh, this is something that's healing us, and I'm so excited for that in the future. And this is where I want to turn kind of towards your storytelling and your branding and your design ideas. When you think about whether it's gray market packaging or it's psychedelics in the future, can you share with us a story, a branding story about psychedelics that's emerging? Like, how do you think about it? Like, tell us your story about how you see it emerging as a storyteller.
Yeah, so I think as far as branding goes, I think of it like a tree, right?
Okay.
The brand identity is the roots, and from the roots, the business can grow and flourish.
I love
And
it.
so developing a really clear understanding of like what this business is trying to communicate to its audience is the core of how I build a brand. And understanding that mission, whether it's a gray market product, whether it's a retreat center, and
Yeah.
getting really, really clear. For example, this project I worked on with the Psychedelic Access Fund. Their mission is to provide access to psychedelic medicine for anybody that needs it. They foot the bill. Like if you qualify as someone who cannot have access or cannot afford treatment, they will provide that access to you. And it's a very clear mission. So when, working with them, hearing that mission, everything comes from that. Like as I'm ideating what the logo is going to look like, as I'm figuring out what colors we use, what type of photography we're going to use, everything dials back to that core message of like we're trying to support people. So I think using that as my checkpoint for as I'm creating, like always consistently going back to what are they trying to say? And when I do that, I'm able to tell the story visually, really. And that's how to resonate with your demographic, with your audience, is through telling stories. And telling a story visually is not just as easy as like, I'm going to pick red, orange, and
Right.
green, and because they look super cool together, and then I'm going to make this logo that says this one thing. It's really like, what symbols are we going to use to communicate the feeling of support? What colors really honor that support? So all of those components together, they make the meaning.
I love that. I think one of the many things that really sets you apart is your ability to understand the relationship between imagery and the feeling it transmits. Like that comes through when I go to your page and look at the people that you've worked with and the sites that you developed. Like there's a real unique relationship there, and it's like I can feel it, and like that I think is the secret sauce in translation. It's almost like a language, right? Like if you can convey your words, it's almost like poetry. When you read poetry and sometimes you get goosebumps, like you're getting more than words, you're getting feeling. And I think that is something you do really well. And maybe we could just talk about that for a moment, like the idea of imagery as language. Like you've done some cool stuff on there. How did you learn about that? You talk about symbols and the meaning they carry with them and what they transmit. I know that's kind of a shotgun at the back door, but let's talk about that for a minute.
It's so funny that you say that, because I use this metaphor all the time. And I'm sort of like in interviews, I'm like, okay, what are some other ways I could say this? Because I don't want to sound like a broken record. But yeah, I really believe designers speak a different language. Like people understand design, but not everybody speaks it, and designers speak it. And so we're like kind of the translators between the words that you use on a daily basis and the visual language of design. And I can't say, I think, over time in my training as a designer, with the incredible professors that I learned under, and the incredible mentors and creative directors that I've had throughout my career, those are the people. It's really about the people that have inspired me and taught me. And I've also, learned through observation, but those people have gotten me to where I am today, to be able to channel my intuition, right? I think design skills can be taught for sure. But for me, my intuition is the most important tool that I use when I'm creating. Because if I am not connected with myself, I can't connect with other people. And I can't connect with businesses to be able to translate into my language.
It's so well said. It reminds me of the point in a psychedelic journey where you bump up against the ineffable. You know what I mean? Where like it's so clear. I got nothing. But
Yes.
that's what you're bringing back, right? Like maybe it's supposed to be ineffable because there's no words for it, and then your job is to create that. I don't know, that 6-figure tetrahedrogram that you saw in there. But your job is to create that through symbolic meaning and imagery. But what is there a relationship between the ineffable and a psychedelic trip and the work you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. There are so many times where I'll like have an idea, like a design idea, and then I'm trying to make it, and it's just like not happening. So I really resonate. And I was on a mushroom trip a couple months ago that like they were incredible, but the downloads were coming so fast. I like literally had to scream out loud, like, slow down. Like I cannot obtain this information. I think I started taking notes at I know I did. I started taking notes at one point. I remember looking at the sheet after. I'm like, this is some alien stuff.
Totally.
Like, this is not writing. But yeah, the ideas can often come really fast, and it's up to me to like capture those and translate them into reality. So yeah, I definitely see so many similarities, and I just have to trust, just like in a mushroom journey, like the ones that are meant to stick, they will stick.
Yeah, it's I feel like there's seeds being planted, and you catch a small glimpse of what the tree, like they show you this is what this tree's gonna look like. Wait, what is it gonna look like? And don't worry about it. The seed's planted. It's in there. It's mind blowing to think of. And you know, another aspect that I think that I see in your work and happens to other people that I speak to is that it gets really scary sometimes. Like sometimes, I think it was Terrence McKinnon who said, if you take a dose and then you don't say after, holy cow, I took too much, I'm going to die, then you didn't take enough. But that can be scary. You know what I mean? Like you find yourself sometimes in a psychedelic journey, like, oh my God, did I take too much or what's going to happen here? I think that that same feeling corresponds to a creator, an entrepreneur in life too. Like, oh my God, I'm really deep in this. This may not work. But on some level, it builds that trust. Like, okay, I got through that psychological trip. I can probably get through this actual physical trip. Have you ever had that happen, or can you relate to
Yeah, yeah, I can deeply relate to that.
that?
I actually, probably without going into too much detail, because I'm still integrating, I
Okay,
just had my first ayahuasca journey a
nice.
week ago, literally got back a week ago. And I experienced absolute agony, to put it lightly. It was
Whoa.
like so deeply painful for hours and 2 nights in a row, 2 ceremonies in a row. And now everything seems easier. I, even just in the last week, 2 weeks, I've just used that as my checkpoint. Like, feels really hard to walk up these 4 flights of stairs with all my bags. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
I've been through worse. And there's so much meaning in message that I'm integrating from that experience. But I know, because of the pain that I've experienced in that setting, or the discomfort that I've experienced with mushrooms, um, those things make me stronger and make everything easier to navigate in daily life, especially when I'm working with clients, especially when I'm presenting ideas and they're not resonating, which can happen. Of course, I want to get it right on the first try, but it doesn't always happen. And so we go back to the drawing board. And if I have my ego in it, that feels really hard. Like, I put a lot of love, like presenting this design. This is my soul. I'm bearing my soul to you. But I really have to like take myself out of the equation. It's not about me. It's about how we're communicating that business and their message through the design. And yeah, so everything feels a lot easier because of my experience with the medicine. Yeah.
That's awesome. Where did you go to? Was it local? Did you go to South America? Can you tell us about the retreat?
Yeah, so I'm actually a digital nomad. So I'm currently
Wow.
living in Medellin, Colombia. And
Whoa.
yeah, I've been here for the better part of the last 5 months. My time is coming to an end soon because of visa issues, which I totally respect. But I have been called to sit with ayahuasca for about a year. So I've really been preparing for this journey for the better part of a year. And ultimately, the call was just so loud, I couldn't resist anymore. And I found this place that came highly recommended called Colibri Garden. Not only do I recommend them, but like there's no other option. Like, so highly recommend Colibri Garden. So they're just outside of Medellin and Santa Elena, and the entire experience was just remarkable.
It blows my mind. I want to jump off on digital nomading for a minute. Like I've seen a few people, I'm super envious. How did that come about? Like, can you maybe there's a young Carly or a young George out there like digital nomad? What? Like, can you maybe help people understand how that's possible?
Yeah, it's possible. Because anything's possible if you want
Yes.
it bad enough, for
Yep.
sure. I've always wanted to travel, like in an extensive way. Ideally, it would have been like right after university. I would just like jump with 2 feet and just start traveling to maybe backpacking through Europe or Southeast Asia, sort of thing. But I fortunately landed a job before I graduated and then got in a 5-year relationship. So, like, that's not what happened. I did not
Mhm.
start traveling. I actually rooted more deeply where I was in Denver, where I lived for 12 years. I moved there when I was 18. So, through university, post university, and building my career there. And then in 2020, the pandemic happened. But what really happened for me was, um, a series of really, really painful experiences. Ended my relationship, lost my best friend to breast cancer, uh, bought a house, which was awesome. But those three things happened within a 2-week period of
Wow.
each other. And so, and then there was a car accident and the loss of a dog within 4 months post that experience. And so that in the container of the pandemic was like this pressure
Mm.
pot of grief and misery and rebirth. I really felt like this house was a womb for me
Mm.
while I was moving through all of this. It changed me, shook me to my core, and made me realize through the deep sadness and hopelessness after all of those things happened, I felt how small my world was. I was just in this house, like locked in this house for all of those reasons, not even just the pandemic. Really, as the pandemic lightened up and more regulations, I stayed in this house. I couldn't get out and I was so deeply miserable, and my ADHD was debilitating. I struggled to feed myself, not out of a lack of desire or hunger, but because decision making felt so challenging. Even like what I'm going to eat for breakfast. And so then I wouldn't do that. So I sought out some naturopathic doctors to help me with my nutrition so I could clear this brain fog and gain more clarity on like how do I get out of this? Like, if you don't nourish your body properly, your brain's not functioning, you
Yep.
can't make decisions. And so it's this vicious cycle, right? So once I started to nourish my body really quickly, it became very clear that I needed to make my world bigger. And so within weeks, I signed up for this program I had heard of years prior called Remote Year. And Remote Year originally started as a 12-month program where individuals who work remotely or don't have jobs at the time, they live in a different country every month for 12 months, traveling with a group of people that are like-minded. Obviously, you have to be to commit to something like that. Remote Year facilitates co-working spaces, living accommodations, and travel between the countries. And I did a 4-month program. So over the years, they had evolved to have different types. So I did a 4-month program. I committed to living in Portugal, Spain, Croatia, and South Africa for 4 months. I left in August of 2021, and I have not stopped being a nomad since. And it's so fulfilling to me. Over the last 3 years, I've stayed in places longer and longer. Like 1 month is not enough for me to
Mhm.
be in a place and really feel like I can understand what life is like there. But when I realized, like, oh, I can do this, I can make this happen. Thankfully, there's remote work. Like, if I had to go in office every day, it's not possible. But yeah, I really had to learn how to hold myself accountable, go to a cafe or co-working space every day. Like, I can't just go around and do touristy things in these countries. I go there and I live my life like I would every day if I had an apartment in the States or whatever. It's really real life. And I think looking at it from that perspective, has made this style of living very accessible.
Wow, it's congratulations. I think it's a beautiful way, and I can imagine that it must open up the floodgates to creativity because you have to create. You have to find a way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm so inspired all the time by
Mm,
these different countries, the way different cultures live, the food. As a creative individual, I rely on the outside, obviously the inside, my intuition, but the outside, I get ideas just by looking. Like living in Mexico City for most of last year was like the architecture there. I mean, I designed a logo just kind of based off of this little tile that I had seen. Just little things like that, that I feel like the monotony of the life that I was living before was not providing. It was not providing that inspiration from the outside.
yeah, it makes me wonder sometimes. Like it's such maybe that's the a big root of depression and being sad is feeling of being trapped. And if you can just get out and see the magic in the environment around you, whether it's in your neighborhood, in your state, or getting the opportunity to go to another country, like that's rewarding, right?
Yeah, it's super rewarding. And part of part of being a nomad is like really breaking the stigma. I mean, I get all the time people are like, don't you want to settle down, or don't you feel crazy like not being in the same place, or um whatever it is, whatever projection.
Mm,
But for me, getting out of the monotony. Like, don't get me wrong, I've got my routine. I've got the places I like to go for lunch every day, and the cafes I want to work at, and my friends, and I dance. I've got my things I like to do, like everyone does. I just happen to be in a different country every couple months and get to try new things and be really, really stimulated by that novelty.
yeah, I feel like different environments have a different personality. When I was in Hawaii, it was different than it is here in Northern California. And I'm curious to get your aspect on that. Do you feel like you get to be submerged in new patterns all the time?
Yeah, I mean, people all over the world live so differently.
Yeah.
And it's not even just like the way things look, because like Medellin is like nestled in the mountains. There's all these buildings in the mountains that are like architectural marvels, honestly. I'm like, how are they not falling over like dominoes? But it's super cool. So, like, the visual aspect is great, but seeing and being immersed in the way people live differently is really inspiring. Like, the kindness and generosity of Colombians has made me a kinder and more generous person. And the flavor and the energy of Mexicans has made
Mhm.
me a little bit more spicy and fiery. And living in places like Portugal, the slowness, Portugal and Spain, they got their siestas, their time they take off during the middle of the day. It makes me a little bit more tranquil and relaxed. And like, it doesn't got to be that intense, like the American state of mind. And yeah, there's so many different countries that I just constantly take inspiration from, and words they say too, like, that are super cool. And yeah, it's just so inspiring.
It's got to be huge for branding, and it's almost like when you learn another language, you get another lens through which to see the world. And when you live in another country, it's like you're given a new personality to experience the world through it. Like maybe I didn't know you were a digital nomad, but it makes sense now when I see some of the work you're doing and how you're able to change the channels on different things. It's so creative.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, the pleasure is all mine. I have a couple questions on the idea of design that I want to get to, and let's okay. In your design process, how do you reconcile the competing forces of intuition and strategic thinking?
It's a good one.
I knew you'd like that one.
That's a good one. That's a thinker. Um, I'm just trying to think about a project I've been working on recently where I've had to balance the two. So I really think my process, I work out of intuition kind of
Okay.
first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I feel based on the mission that the client is trying to achieve. And I'll create from that and I'll ideate from that what I intuitively think is the best path. And then from the market research I've done, I'll take that idea and sort of mold it and shape it like, yeah, this is fun and kind of like funky, but is it gonna align with the target audience? So yeah, it's a fine line and fine balance of like making what I think is really dope and
Yeah.
also like, is this gonna work? So yeah, that's kind of my process is I start from a heart-centered place and then I move into like, okay, let's refine this and tweak it and make it make sense for like what this business is actually trying to do.
I've noticed in a lot of your work too. I think you try to bring like it seems to me that you try to create an aspect of humor to make people smile in the designs you're doing. Is that something, are you trying to design a life where people see it and they smile? Like how do you design humor into things? Maybe you could talk about that aspect of
Yeah, I mean, this project comes into mind
it.
immediately. I did a branding and marketing campaign for a course that Jason Silva did. I don't know if you know Jason Silva, but he's kind of like he's a modern day philosopher. The way he talks, he's so animated and but so accessible. The messages that he shares are so profound but accessible, and um, he uses a lot of film references and is pretty quirky and loves to integrate humor. And I consider myself a funny person,
Yeah.
but when I get to work with someone like that, it just like amplifies it. And so working on the branding campaign for him, I used a lot of imagery of like whimsical things like hot air balloons or people like swinging from cliffs. I don't know if you saw that project, but like having that, it was called Becoming Awestruck. And I wanted to incorporate these like cool elements of awe and also like cleverness and humor. And I think things like that, when you go into the little details and be kind of cheeky, in design, we call them Easter eggs, like hide things within the design, like that creates this energy of lightness, like of levity in design work. And I think it's super important. I also like to be really playful with the colors I use as often as I can be. Like, even if we're doing like a neutral palette, what if we add lime green? Like, how can we just make things interesting?
Yeah.
And I think that's the humor in design.
I love it. Like to me, it signals a breakaway from the cheapest, quickest, consumer driven product. You know what I mean? Like I feel on some level we've gotten to a point where efficiency has taken over, and it's not a bad thing, but sometimes efficiency just makes things blah. And why not have lime green in there? Why not put that Easter egg in there? For the younger versions and the next generation of designers to catch their eye and sort of, hey, come over here, kind of whisper to them in a way. I love that you're doing that. And I think it also speaks to you had mentioned in one of your bios that I read that narrative before visual. So I like maybe you could talk to that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think this really goes back to using my intuition
Right.
to understand the mission of the client, and telling the story that they want to tell. But also, sometimes businesses don't really know the story they want to tell. So it's up to me to work with brand strategists and copywriters to help businesses and individuals understand the story they want to tell. And then through getting clarity on that, I'm able to be that translator, sort of like we talked about
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah. Have you noticed a difference in the places that you've been living about the like have you noticed a difference in the way people tell stories in their community? Sometimes I feel like where I'm at, there's a lack of rites of passage between the older generation and the younger generation. But in my mind, it seems to me in South America and some of these places in Europe, maybe there's still that strong bond and there's still that ceremony. Am I just romanticizing that, or have you noticed that?
No, you're not romanticizing
Yes.
it. It's so true. I think there is some of that in the States, but
Right.
it runs deep in other countries. Like living in South Africa, oh my God, the history in that country is and the wounding is so deep, but like stories pass from generation to generation. And like in Colombia, I was talking to a friend, like the way Colombians tell stories is like a song. It's
That's so beautiful.
really incredible. And I think many of I know many of these countries and their cultures, like people live with their families for multiple generations. When I lived in Morocco, for example, it was like, and I was dating. It's like everybody lives with their parents and their
Mm.
grandparents, and I think
Yep.
that's the case that a lot of South Africa, South America, it's not uncommon. And to have those connections, those deep connections intergenerationally it creates this level of depth, I think, that can be really lacking in the States.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of places where you grew up. If you're not 17 or 18 and living on your own, you haven't made it, and
Exactly.
like I moved back to be close to my parents now. And when we lived in Hawaii, we were so isolated. It was my wife, myself, and my daughter. And just moving back here and realizing, oh my God, like that was wonderful. But I sort of denied my daughter the wisdom of her grandparents by not being around, and just having them around now, like on a daily basis. You can see this relationship forming, and it's almost like another lens through which to see the world. And they know way more than I know about raising a kid, about adversity. And I really hope that we can see sort of a return to that sort of intergenerational living on some sort. I think it's so wealthy. Do you think that that is something that can be incorporated into designs and logos later in life, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, for me, my family is incredibly important to me. I'm so blessed. Like my mom and my brother are like my soulmates. Like we look at each other sometimes and we're like, we get to do
Yep.
this. This is so cool. And I'm fortunate enough as a nomad, as someone who works remotely, I get to, and my family welcomes me in to spend, a couple months with them. I live with my mom for a
Yep.
few months out of the year. And that has truly changed who I am and formed who I am as an
Yep.
adult. Because there were many, many years, like in college, like I moved away and I lived in a different state for 12 years, and not being able to spend those long periods of time with family. I think it's nice to have a visit, but what really happens when we spend extended periods of time is we develop a deep understanding of
Yep.
who they are. They can tell stories and we can have some meals, but when you see how they are on a day to day basis, for me, it's really influenced even more how I show up in the world. And
Yep.
my mom is an incredible businesswoman, built a business ground up. Um, and so just talking to her about things like that and hearing her stories and hearing what she's been through in life, um, it absolutely impacts the way that I design, the way that I run my business.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I think it's so important, and I hope it inspires other people to rekindle the people relationships with the people in their life that are meaningful. Carly, I know we're kind of coming up on an hour, but what do you got coming up in the future? Are you reading anything, or what are you using right now to inspire you that maybe you could give to the audience who might be listening?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I've got a lot on the horizon that I'm really excited about. Some new clients that I'm working with. I'm about to start the Artist Way. I don't know if you've heard
Ooh,
about the Artist Way.
let's hear it.
It's a workbook for creatives. It's been around for a long time, but and I don't know about it. I haven't started yet, but what I do know is it's a way to connect spiritually to enhance an artist's creativity. And it's not just for artists or not just for creatives, but it's really to connect the two, how spirituality and creativity intermix. And so that's something I'm just about to get started on. I've also, in preparation for my ayahuasca ceremony, I was on dieta. And so I changed a lot of the ways in which I showed up in the world, journaling practices and meditation, which is something that I fought for a long time. I'm not really a routine person. I always knew like my highest self does all these things, but I really struggled, especially with being neurodivergent. Like, I really struggled to integrate those healthy practices into my life. And as post retreat and pre retreat, starting to integrate some of those things, I know is what's going to ultimately help me to be the best version of myself, which is going to reflect in the business that I run. So right now I'm really focusing on how I can take care of myself in the best way possible so I can like run a really awesome business.
I think you're doing it, and I think it's an inspiration. I'm so thankful for the creative design work and the candid conversation you have and the inspiration. Like I told you before we were talking, like it blows my mind to get to talk to all the people today that are laying the groundwork for an incredible future tomorrow. And I count you in that. Like you're amazing. I hope everybody takes an opportunity to go and see what you're doing and reach out to you, or and I reached out to you. Like, you're easy to talk to and you're willing to help people. And I hope people will see that olive branch for what it is. If you're a young creator and you're out there, or someone that is looking for some inspiration, reach out to Carly. She's doing amazing things, and all you need to do is look at what she's done and it'll blow your mind. So Carly, I'm super stoked you're here. What are the sites people can find you on? Can you say them out loud? We'll put them in the show notes, but it's nice to
Yeah,
hear.
definitely. So first and foremost, in the works is studiodelic.com, all one word. That's the branding and design studio for businesses dedicated to psychedelic medicine and being psychedelic minded. And my personal portfolio is carlydg.com, CARLYDG.com. That's some of the work that I've done pre-Studio Delic that you can get a glimpse of. And Instagram at the Studio Delic. And if you want to see my personal life, I kind of keep that separate from business, but it's at Energy, ENEERG on Instagram. And that, like I said, I'm a dancer, so I like to show glimpses of that here and there. So those are the main places. Also, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And then we've got our next Psychedelic Professionals Networking Club coming up at the end of this month, doing like the fourth Thursday. So I think it's the 26th this month. So if you follow some of those channels, I'll be able to give you information about all that.
Yeah, everybody check it out. Go into the show notes, check it all out. And Carly, I'm so thankful for our time today. Hang on briefly afterwards. I wanted to talk to you just for a few moments afterwards. But to everybody else who hung out, thank you so much. Carly, Ben, Clint, Caesar, everybody out there, man. I'm so stoked everybody listening on channels. And if you listen to this in the future, thank you for your time. That's all we got, ladies and gentlemen. Aloha.